We'll get started here soon. Drop in the comments any questions you got, drop in the chat. I'm gonna talk about Venezuela today, gonna talk about the effects on the markets, effect on oil, effect on crypto, Bitcoin, etc. Gonna go over some charts, gonna be fun. Be sure to hit the like button, drop any comments or chats you have below. I'm just giving this a minute for people to come in. Hopefully YouTube brings some people in, so we got a lot to talk about today. But I was over on TikTok right before this, and I was getting, it was like not bringing anybody to the live stream. So I decided to come over to YouTube and try this out. I've been on here in a minute. But it's really interesting here. How do I flip this? You know, this is what I was reading over on finance.yahoo is about oil markets bracing for a supply squeeze. That very well could be, but what oil markets are they talking about? Because America doesn't really get oil from Venezuela. And frankly, we just kind of took control of Venezuela, it seems like. But China, Russia, although Russia doesn't really need it, China is the major benefactor, is the major buyer of oil from Venezuela. And now they don't have a supplier in Venezuela anymore. And I guess we confiscated some oil tanker headed for China, something like that. Very interesting. I didn't expect to wake up to this today. Did you? Did any of you? I did not. Holy crap. But as I'm reading through here, gosh, these little videos, they talk about, I mean, there was obviously his post and stuff like that, but they're over here talking about, you know, this Venezuelan thing and its impact on markets is really what we're focusing on. Really about the energy markets. And they think Venezuela sits on about, in its reserves, you know, under the ground, has about 300 billion barrels of oil. That's the biggest in the world, by the way. And there's just a lot going on here about what's going to happen with their oil reserves and what's going to go on. It seems to me like we've kind of taken over Venezuela, but they're kind of worried, you know, that there might be like a civil war. They don't know what's really going to happen there. I mean, we've seen this story before, right? But what's going to be the impact on markets? You know, finance.yahoo over here is talking about maybe a supply squeeze on oil markets, right? And Chevron is like the biggest company in Venezuela, from what I'm understanding. I'm still doing research on this, but you know, they're talking about, you know, here's what's really important to remember. Does anyone know what the petrodollar is? What's up, Sampro? Drop in the comments. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever heard of the petrodollar? Have you ever heard of the petrodollar? Drop in the comments. This is actually a really big thing today with this Venezuelan news. The petrodollar, and there's actually quite a history that goes along with it. If you ever want to understand stuff, it's important to understand things like this. Drop in the comments or the chat. Do any of you know what the petrodollar is? Yes, no? Have you heard of it? Have you ever heard of the petrodollar? Well, I'll just get onto it and say it, because here's what the petrodollar is. It's the US dollar backed by oil, right? Before 1970, up until 1971, the dollar was backed by gold. But Nixon took us off the gold standard because, of course, we printed way more money. We didn't have enough gold to back up all the money we printed. So for a few years there was nothing backing the dollar until we orchestrated Henry Kissinger, the Secretary of Defense, orchestrated a deal with Saudi Arabia. And here was the deal. They said, Saudi Arabia, it's a war-torn area here. Would you like the US military? They said, yes, we would love that. And Kissinger says, that's fine, we got your back. The only thing we need you to do is that anyone that buys oil from you, they need to pay you in US dollars. Saudi Arabia said, boom, got it, and the birth of the petrodollar happened. Now the thing is that when oil is backing the dollar, and Saudi Arabia has been diverging away from that over the past few years, mostly because we put sanctions on Russia. So the dollar is weakening because the petrodollar is it's fading. So they need a new supplier of oil, right, to back the petrodollar. Enter Venezuela. Enter Venezuela. It's pretty wild, actually. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. Yeah, this whole, I don't know what markets are going to do right now. And I don't, there's a lot of uncertainty now with this new Venezuelan news, right? Where we went in case you didn't know, early this morning, about 10 hours ago, something like that, about 10 hours ago, the US went into Venezuela and captured the president of Venezuela. So the markets, financial markets, et cetera, are wondering what's going to happen, what's going on. And so that puts uncertainty in the market, straight up. And markets, above all, they hate uncertainty. So frankly, I don't know what the markets are going to do. They're talking about this over here, talking about maybe an oil market, a brace for maybe oil shortage, which would be a supply squeeze. But America doesn't really get its oil. Again, doesn't really get its oil from Venezuela, but now we kind of have control of Venezuela. Love it or hate it, it just is what it is now. But Venezuela, again, like I was saying, is a major supplier of oil to China. And Russia and Iran have big partnerships with Venezuela. So this is a big blow to China, Russia, and Iran. I think China may be the most because Venezuela is such a major oil supplier to China. As a matter of fact, even during this thing today, I guess they stopped and confiscated a big oil tanker headed for China. So China oil supply just took a major hit, right? And Iran and Russia and Cuba, this is very interesting. What are markets going to do? I don't know. I don't know. And markets hate uncertainty, and I don't think I'm the only one feeling uncertain. So this is interesting. I posted a video today about what could possibly be going on. It could be a rush to kind of safe haven stuff, but let's go over here. Let's just go to the Bitcoin chart. Let me know in the chat, who would like to know if we're in a bull market or a bear market regarding crypto and Bitcoin? Give me a 1 in the chat, say yes, anything like that. I would appreciate a response. Nicholas, thank you for the Holy Spirit. I don't know what that means. Kianak, welcome in. Sampro, welcome in. Drop in the comments. Is anyone interested in looking at if Bitcoin and crypto are in bull markets or bear markets? Is anyone interested in Bitcoin with bull markets or bear markets? I'm just going to dive into it. So here's the Bitcoin chart right here, right? We're looking at the 2-week chart, okay? The price of Bitcoin. Down here is the RSI. We'll come back to that. What I want you to understand first and foremost is this. This is the most important thing to know. Bitcoin, its entire existence, here's the lifetime chart of Bitcoin. Look at this thing. It goes all the way back to September, October 2009. This thing just goes up its entire existence. I don't see that stopping, but it does have phases of spikes and pullbacks, right? I do. Now the question is, are we still waiting for a spike or are we in a pullback phase, right? So the first thing I want to show you is this. Right, all these blue lines, these are the Bitcoin halving events. The first ever one happened in October of 2012, August 16, April 2020, April 2024. Okay, about every 4 years. So those are the halving years. When I say post-halving year, what I mean is 2013, 2017, 21, 25. Okay, so look at this. This is the first ever what you would call bull market in Bitcoin. Okay. So the halving was in October of 2012. When did it peak? Right here in November of the post-halving year. Q4 of the post-halving year went all the way up to 1242 before it found a bottom almost exactly a year later at $166. Wouldn't that be nice to buy Bitcoin at $166? Here's what I really want to show you. And let me zoom in on this. Check this out. I hate cars that make them. Can you guys hear that car going by? It just keeps, I don't know what it's doing, a little zipper car. Anyways, so right here, we peak in November of 2013, the post-halving year, come all the way up to 1242. Now, here's what I want you to see. I want you to pay attention to Bitcoin breaking. This is the RSI down here. You see how it gets way up here? Think of this as being really greedy, almost like euphoria, right? It's what's called overbought, okay? November 2013, post-halving year, the top. And then we have this big pullback on the RSI. Basically what RSI is, is a indicator of momentum, right? So even though price is going up, but if momentum starts going down, well, that's kind of tough. It's hard for a rocket to keep going up as it loses momentum. You know what I mean? Like it's going up, 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 it's accelerating, but then the acceleration slows, losing momentum, and then eventually it falls. So that's what happened back here. Got very greedy, and then we came down here to the neutral zone, bounced off it, and then came down below neutral. This dotted line right here is the neutral. Came down, right? Came all the way down from November of 2013, we were over $1,200, to September of 14, right? To $275. And then we bounced. Bounced up to 475. That's quite a bounce. And we had something like that back here too, right? Went down to 340 and bounced over the next several weeks up to 685. Got rejected off the 200-day moving average, dropped to the bear market bottom. That's the pattern, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the next one. This is 2017. Here we are in the super greedy zone again. Look at that. Super greedy zone. Goes up to almost $20,000. Then it pulls back below the yellow line, bounces up, right? RSI made a lower low, bounces up from a low of under $6,000, bounces up to almost $10,000. And then gets rejected into the bear market bottom off the yellow line, just like it did back here. Let's go to 2021. We had a top, broke below it. This time we did get back above the yellow to make a double top, but you can see momentum, RSI is fading, right? That's a high and a lower high. That's called a bearish divergence. Pulling back, goes below neutral, down to here, goes from 69,000 down to under 33,000, and then bounces over the next several weeks, a couple months really, to almost 40 to 48,000. It's a 50% bounce. Right? Gets rejected from the yellow line, boom, down to bear market bottom. 3 straight times it's done that. Where are we today? Where are we today? Well, look at this. What if that same pattern was playing out? Here we have a high, a higher high, and a higher high. 3 higher highs, 3 high, higher high, higher high. High, lower high, lower high. This is a triple bearish divergence. That's not a good sign. That's a strong sign of slowing momentum. We've broken below the 200-day moving average and held down there, came right down to this orange line. I forgot to even show that before. Right, all these other times, all these other bull market to bear markets, what happened? We came down to the orange line before we bounced to the 200. Came down to the orange line, bounced to the 200. Came down to the orange line, bounced to the 200. Here we are today, coming down to the orange line. So I think the most likely outcome here, right? We made a lower low on the RSI going below neutral. Most likely outcome is a bounce to the 200-day moving average where it gets rejected and heads down to the bear market bottom over the following months. Probably somewhere between 35 and 55,000. I think somewhere in the 40s for sure, but it might take up to almost a year, right? Isn't that crazy? Drop in the comments. What are you guys thinking? Boy, the attendance today is not much. 0 people on here at the moment, it shows me. There were 2, now 0. So I don't know who this is getting shown to. Anyone got any questions or comments? I think I'm going to end the live stream soon because YouTube's not pushing it out to anybody. Hit the follow button if you haven't, if you're liking this. Any questions about markets, Bitcoin, this Venezuela thing? All right, I think I might end the stream. YouTube's not really pushing me out today, and I got a lot of things to do. I thought there'd be a lot to dive into, but no point in talking out to the void if YouTube's not gonna push the stream out to anybody. All right, y'all, I'm out of here.